the outcome of the LGA peer challenge, which I will move. We have a seconder.
Happy to second, Chair.
I'll just make some brief remarks. For me, this was part of a desire to be open and transparent about what the Council does, and that's why we had an independent look at the Council. There is much positive to say about the findings of the LGA. I'm not going to read through them all. I'll simply note actually that not only the comments in the formal report, but also the verbal feedback we had to staff members and council who were invited. The peer team particularly praised the attitude and professionalism of the staff, and I just wanted to note that. In terms of going forward, in terms of recommendation for to continue the improvement journey, what we're asking scrutiny to do is to look specifically at customer engagement, and there's a terms of reference in the papers here. In addition to that, mechanisms for dealing with members' inquiries will be put in place by, well, from now, to make sure that those are dealt with appropriately. And there'll be other activity to look at the broader engagement, and there's some conversations going on already about tenant engagement, for example. But the key thing about this will be, in terms of reference to the scrutiny committee, to look at the customer engagement in detail. And just so that I think I introduced Jane very early on with a comment about management capacity, and I'm pleased we have an appointment to lead the committee.
On the peer review, I welcome this peer review, but there are a number of points that I think need to be brought out from the report that were missing from your summary. In particular, the peer review look at the one-year horizon approach of administrations, whatever political colour. They've talked about that. Now, I think that's important because actually our group has always been of the view that 4-yearly elections provide a greater continuity for administrations to set up a programme, a long-term programme for the council. So I think that's a particular point of interest. In terms of the financial planning viability on page 23, they reference something that our administration, Conservative administration, brought in, which was, of course, the partnership with Wesley Group that has guaranteed, and they say in their own words, long-term income for the council, evidence of a Conservative administration that is putting forward long-term plans to generate income and that there is between the decision-making process, and that there are issues of governance issues in particular in this council that need to be addressed, and that is not providing great enough clarity for this council and the leadership of this council, which I think is of serious concern. I'd also like to flag the fact that there is key concern over a lack of strategic workforce planning. But that has implications, again, for the long term. We constantly, as a council, need to look at the staffing levels that we have. And in the long term, we face a critical issue. And the peer review has highlighted the fact that there is no strategic workforce planning that is actually up to standard. And this is something that I think needs to be addressed.
Clearly, happy to have further discussions. It is not a simple or quick process to change. I mean, apart from gaining broad agreement, there's a whole load of public consultation, the Commission involved and what have you. I think in the meantime, certainly what I've tried to do is to look at a longer term view of financial planning in particular. I think there are a number of areas where we already have cross-party agreement, particularly in the regeneration area and what have you, and I would look to further those. So I note the comments and I'm happy to have a further discussion, but that's not quick or straightforward to implement. In terms of governance, I mean, there are some internal conversations that have happened, and looking at how members, particularly in the administration and senior officers, can get closer together in terms of co-leadership and decision making, and some of those things have already been put in place and are bearing fruit. In terms of the long-term planning, so please remind me what your third point was.
to strategic workforce plan.
Oh, sorry, yes, absolutely. So absolutely understand that. I mean, and that's a conversation we have had and are, you know, continuing to have. I think that will possibly be reflected in further look at HR strategy in particular. But in terms of succession planning and making sure that we bring existing staff through the ranks, if you like, I think the appointment of James here is a positive move in that report.
One thing that very clearly sung to me was that we do have a very dedicated body of staff, very experienced body of staff who are very good at their job, and I think, forget the party politics for a minute, all councillors should just recognise the very good job that our staff do. It was also very pleasing to read that the leader of that staff workforce, Chief Executive, business and voluntary sector partners spoke very highly of the Chief Executive's role in maintaining close links, so I think we owe our Chief Executive a debt of thanks there. It talks an awful lot in this report about the changes that have been made in Harlow Council over the last 10 years, and it particularly focuses on that time period a number of times. And I think rightly so, because in 10 years, I've been on the council longer than 10 years, but in the last 10 years things really have changed. I don't think one political party can lay claim to all of those changes. There's been a variety of different administrations in control of this council over time, and all of them have tried to do some good things to move forward, and I think it's good that that is recognised here. There are, however, some standouts, and as Councillor Charles has already mentioned, the Westerly link, which I know many members of the present administration were particularly against when it was being brought in. I think privatising death was the phrase used by some members of the current administration. It's good to see that the service is now being praised because it has improved and it is generating income for the council, but it's also improved from a service user's perspective. People are now actually pleased to be using the crematorium, whereas before, at a time when people are at their most upset, at the time when they're at their most vulnerable, it wasn't a very nice service to be offering. So I'm pleased that that has improved. Consultation also rings through here, or lack of consultation. There were two comments about consultation that really spoke to me. The first, when it was talking about a lack of transparency in some of the council's management, and the fact that it could sometimes seem to people that consultation was happening after the event. I think that's something this council needs to look very carefully at, because if we're going to do consultation, or if you're going to do consultation, it needs to be done properly, and the people that are being consulted need to feel like they are actually being consulted and listened to. And more importantly, in the most recent consultation, it pointed to your budget consultation, where it's already suggesting that you may be going away from some of the things that residents asked for in that consultation. And what it says is that you really need to make sure your explanations for that are very clear and front and centre, and I would second that. If you're going to consult with people and hear an answer and then not do it, you need to tell people why you're doing that. There's another expression in here, again going back to our staff, to finish on the same positive that I started on. Staff gave some touching examples of where they had gone the extra mile to resolve individual residents' problems. I'm really pleased to hear that, and I hope that all of our staff end up going the extra mile, and that the staff are appraised of what's happened in this consultation, in this peer review, and are told just how much an external organisation thought of them and how much councillors from all sides think of them.
Those comments that I've already made about staff, I mean, that is a very strong positive. Just on the consultation, I mean, there are, I take the general point. When I am absolutely serious about consultation and taking it seriously, I did speak to the Churchgate Street Resident Association, in particular the context about the local plan, and there were some things about that sort of lessons to be learned about the next stage of consultation on the local plan. I certainly fed those back to officers, and we'll make sure those get put in place. In terms of the budget, we'll get there in a moment, but we will be talking about precisely how we've been responding specifically to the priorities that came back from the budget consultation. And clearly that information in terms of the formation of the budget wasn't available to the peer challenge team at that time.